Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, this is the last wrap-up session for our meeting. What we've got up here is our primary program committee, Les Judith, and she was giving somebody a tour of her office, I think, last we heard. So maybe she'll come in. We are not going to do death by PowerPoint at the end, so we'll spare you that. This is intended to be a general open discussion. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming here for this meeting. We're just thrilled by the turnout and the quality of the presentations. When a program committee takes abstracts and selects a program based on a few paragraphs of text, you don't know how it's going to come out. And I've just been thrilled by the quality of the presentations and the quality of the discussion that's followed. So what I'd like to do is as soon as each of these other people make some final comments, is to just open this for a discussion with the whole group about things we didn't do, things you wish we should have done, your feelings about the future of the cloud, what you're concerned about, what you're excited about. I think that would be the most interesting way to conclude this. Oh, and also a general discussion about things like what we're going to do, what we should do next in terms of this meeting. Arcady, do you want to say anything? Whoops, we still have people coming in.
Please come in. So I want to say that this event started as an MSR event for a limited kind of group, and we saw a lot of interest from people overseas. And maybe just to introduce myself, if you don't know, I'm responsible for worldwide faculty engagement. And since we heard a lot of people from overseas want to come, so we made an effort to many of you come, and we're very happy that despite this short notice and a lot of arrangements, you came. We are very interested in academia tech collaboration, and it's important that not only connection be with us, but between you two. But also, since it's just start, we're very interested in your feedback. So this is very important for us because we are doing this for you. Okay? So any feedback, I think this was a survey posted. There is some box with some feedback there. You can do it anonymously, or you can send email to any one of us and tell what you like, what you didn't like, what you want to hear from us. Any programs you're interested, like internals of Azure or any other things, you are very welcome.
Just a brief comment to add to what Arkady talked about. We actually put this together in a relatively short period of time. It actually reminded me of back in 2006, after Microsoft Research had their faculty summit. Jim Gray collared me and several colleagues and said, let's put together an e-science workshop and let's do it in October. That was 3 months. And we said, well, there won't be time to do a full call for papers, but we could pull as many faculty as we knew who were interested in this topic and invite them to submit abstracts. And we ended up with a conference with 220 attendees from all over the world, which is now going to repeat in its 5th year this coming October. So I think there's a track record here of bringing together faculty who have an interest in a particular topic, get a vibrant discussion going like we've had over the past couple of years, and then really begin to form this into something where the discussion can continue going forward, perhaps with a formal call for papers and a program committee and a paper review and potentially academic journal publications, et cetera. We did something very similar, again, back in 2006 with the topic of game development, which evolved into a formal conference that is now co-branded by ACM, 4 different SIGs, and is now independent of Microsoft, and we think that's a great success as well. So I personally am hoping this topic of cloud futures will have a similar trajectory, and that you'll go back to your campuses and talk to your colleagues and begin to talk about what next year might offer. It doesn't have to be here in Redmond. We've moved these conferences around the country, so it doesn't have to be here in Redmond, although this year it seems that co-locating this event with the External Research Faculty Symposium gave many of you who don't have regular contact with people here at Microsoft Research an opportunity to hear what they're interested in, what they're funding, what kinds of discussions they're having, and perhaps delivered some value to you that you wouldn't have had if you just came here for 2 days for Cloud Futures. The other thing I just add to what Arkady was talking about is that we're very segmented here at Microsoft, in case you haven't noticed. So Arkady and I work over on we call it the evangelism side of the business, where we're working with faculty really around what is being taught in the classroom, what you're teaching your students, and how we can equip your students with the tools that they're going to need to be successful in the workforce. But then we have external research here at Building 99 that's very interested in getting to know all of you from a research perspective and developing research collaborations. And you heard this morning from Dan Reed about what XCG is doing and the hope that we have to build a very vibrant community around this cloud topic. So I think that we're working together. This is very much a collaboration between the group that Arkady and I are involved with, and DPE, as well as the Extreme Computing Group and External Research. And I think and as well as a collaboration with all of you, because you took time out of your busy schedules coming from a long distance in many cases, and you're jet lagged, and you're getting through all these sessions, and you're all here at the wrap-up, which I'm just very impressed with. So I just want to thank you all for your efforts, and hope this conversation will continue.
To echo everyone else's comments.
It works.
It does work?
It's working.
Thank you. Just to simply say thank you for your contributions. This has been great, hearing all of the ideas, all of the papers and the discussions. Our group is keenly interested in understanding what kind of research can we support on the cloud. And this is clearly going to be a dialogue that's going to unfold over the next several years. We want to be active in that with you. We are building websites and resources that we can offer to the community to help bootstrap your efforts, but we really need to have your input on what kind of services we should be offering, what kind of resources we can be offering in addition to educational resources to help start projects up on the cloud. So definitely we'd like to hear from you and for you to be actively involved, and even go back to your own research institutions and think about helping articulate for your domain, for your communities, what is appropriate for the cloud today and what workloads simply can't be supported, so we can have an open dialogue in the form of papers, blog postings, etc., both on our website and on your own sites as well. Thank you.
Let me just add along those lines something that I mentioned when I gave a talk at the end of the faculty summit meeting. And Dan alluded to this today, that we have engaged with a variety of organizations to provide Azure resources on a substantial scale. We've done this now with the U.S. National Science Foundation. As I mentioned the other day, we have just concluded a contract with the European Commission to provide cloud resources. Fabrizio Gagliardi, I don't think he's here today, but he's led that effort. And what will be happening with that is there will be an open call for people who would like to have some substantial, or at least as much as we can afford, access to Azure resources in Europe. In Asia, I'm working on similar projects. I've learned that the U.S. was hard. Europe is 5 times more difficult, and Asia is 5 times more difficult than Europe. But we'll get there, and we will make these things, this resources available. So at this point, I want to just sort of open it to general comments and questions and suggestions, things you think we missed that you think need to be brought out. This is your chance to stand on a soapbox and tell us about it, or just anything you want to talk about.
Ricardo Jimenez from Technical University of Madrid. So I would like to thank you for the great event. So I think it has been very interesting. Something that I would have been very interested in hearing possibly because of my bias. It could be talks about the architecture and technical challenges, scientific challenges that have been overcome to make Azure possible. As a researcher in cloud, I'm interested in this kind of stuff. I understand that some of that technical details will be not public, but I think many others will be, and we can learn a lot from there, like with the papers from others, like the GFS and so on. Another thing that could be interesting, not for the event, but regarding Azure, would be to have a kind of academic version where researchers can look into the architecture and can try to improve things, like an academic version of Azure that where we have the code available and we can try to improve things and do research on top of that. And finally, to teach courses regarding on cloud to students, it would be great to be able to apply for some kind of grant to get hours for the students to use Azure for their projects. Because otherwise, if we have to pay or they have to pay, it becomes difficult to manage. Thank you.
So let me just comment on some of those points. One is that the lack of presentations about the Azure architecture. We've actually tried to keep the presentations focused on your work and not necessarily our internal work. But I think that's a great idea. A lot of the things we can talk about, Dan this morning talked a little bit about the architecture of the data center, the architecture, and you've seen some sort of practical views, user-level views of the Azure architecture in the preceding tutorial. In terms of the details of the architecture, that's a more complicated problem, and it's largely due to the fact that Azure itself is evolving very, very rapidly. I've had many faculty members come to me and they said, is it all right, I have an experiment that I would like to run where I want to get in and I want to modify the resource allocator in Azure. And unfortunately, we're using a commercial service here, and there are companies that are currently using Azure. For example, we have a chain of pizza parlors named Pizza Hut in this country, which uses Azure. And I would hate to have to see the Pizza Hut people explain to their customers why the pizza is late because the resource allocator experiment failed. And so that's why I've not been much success with doing that. I'd love to do it because we get a lot of requests from computer scientists to do that. I think as we look at the platform as it evolves in the future, who knows? Neither Roger nor I, who work pretty closely with Azure, have any indication that that's going to happen anytime soon, but they surprise us every week with new things that they do. Roger, do you want to, is that?
Very, yeah, spot on.
But I think next time, yeah, we should do more on some of the detailed architecture. That's a good point.
Yeah, we do have some architects who have come from research, who are from distributed systems community. Many of you would recognize their names, who are architects of Azure, and we certainly could have them come and talk about, in general, how the decisions they made in crafting Azure and making the design decisions they made. What were the trade-offs? I think that would be very interesting for the audience, and we certainly will fold that in. This year we were focusing on the applications that sit on top. We certainly can drop down to that next level. We'll even extend an invitation again next year also to Amazon and Google to ask them to also come and share their design decisions, because it is an interesting space. But this year we targeted a little up level.
It would be very interesting if Google would come and share their design decisions.
Well, Jeff Dean has given some very candid talks. In many cases, he shows a lot of secrets about how they've made design decisions. If you look at his talks, and they're fantastic. A lot of nuggets in his talks.
In fact, there is another event that maybe you might know. It's called LADIS,
Yes.
the large-scale distributed system.
Yeah.
And the most interesting thing was the second event where they invited people from cloud computing industry,
Yep.
and the talks that they gave that were technical, about particular technical and scientific challenges and how they overcome them, or sometimes simply to characterize which was the problem that they were trying to solve.
Yeah.
Congratulations. This meeting has been really, really good. We have been able to meet several people from all over the world researching on trying to put applications on the cloud. I just wanted to share this observation, especially with Professor Gannon was talking about we being at the application level going down. There is this parallel effort called the open source community. I do not know if you're aware. HP, Intel, Yahoo, and others are supporting the development of systems level packages which can possibly run a cloud. And that offers a lot of opportunities for us to play around, to understand what goes inside the cloud and how to research and contribute there. But a similar effort from the Microsoft side would be something which is really worthwhile and interesting to us, because many times I found here when I inquired, kind of hit the wall. What goes inside the Azure, we don't know. What is there in Azure, we see it, but more at the user level. I think at the user level, trying to cook up applications is nice, but somewhere along the line, as researchers, we want to peek inside, under the hood. So your observations, please.
Well, if you get your wishes realized, there's going to be a lot of people wanting to run experiments and to run research and so on, and it doesn't seem right indeed to do this on the same platform as the one that is used to maintain the quality and the regularity of the pizza supply of the United States. So have you given... what about, I don't know, research Azure or academic Azure, or so some place where we could indeed ask you to change the resource allocator or do crazy things, and possibly even, I hate to mention it, for free.
We'd love to do that. It's just a matter of what do we have at our disposal, and at this point, all we really had was Azure as it is, and so our group, Roger and I, run by Dan Reed, is literally buying service from our budget from Azure in order to give it away, and that's all we have. We can't even at this point, and I say at this point, if we bought a container of servers, we couldn't even get the code ourselves to put on that system. I mean, it is evolving so rapidly that we've looked into this, and but that doesn't rule it out in the future. I'd love to see it happen.
Yeah, so you left me without a question. I'll formulate something else. First, thanks for this wonderful workshop. I think it would greatly help us if you could provide a list of Microsoft people working on Azure and exactly what they're doing on Azure, at least keywords, so that we can select whom to send questions to.
So we do have, that's probably not a great thing that we could do, but we do have, if you go to our website that we offered, researchmicrosoft.com/Azure, we do have an XCG Engage alias. It's right on the website. You can send us questions, and we do have a team that will actually get answers for you. But obviously, when those questions turn into how did you implement X, or that would probably be a little bit more difficult to get those. I don't want to set expectations for that. But I'd also push back on a lot of, I used to be a distributed systems guy when I was in graduate school, and we had the source code for Linux and et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, the more interesting stuff stood on top of the operating system. It wasn't down on the bowels. We weren't compiling the operating system. And so there is a difference here. Should we be focusing on what we build on top to actually make more compelling experiences and actually have transformational experiences? Or do we really want to be working down on the plumbing? And I realize the audience will split if we split the room. The systems researchers over here are saying, give me a rack and give me the code. And then the other half, which is I want the programming models, I want security, et cetera. And so we are making some purposeful choices here on the audience. We're focusing both limitation-wise and also I think where you might have the most impact. Because at the end of the day, it's about what can people get done with the cloud. And it's the experience, not the flops, not how fast it goes. But that's just a personal choice at this point.
Can I add another point of contact? If you missed, was there an academic pilot, azurepilot.com by Krishna Kumar, presented previous session. It's an excellent point to get in touch and ask questions.
Yeah, it overlapped with my presentation.
It's will be more oriented, teaching, and this is research.
We will have all the presentations up for you to be able to watch, and I'll send everybody an email saying it's up. Here's the link. Share it with your colleagues and so forth. So we realized with 3 different tracks, it was impossible to catch every session. Other questions? Comments?
I have a question. This is for the group. I mean, one of the things that from Dan's talk this morning and the interest that Roger and I have and others within our group, that we consider to be really the exciting frontier on much of the distributed systems and application side is really that connection between our client devices and the sensor networks, the data streams. These are, for us, the grand challenges. And how do we connect? I know there's at least one iPad in the room. How do we connect devices like that to cloud applications? Because right now, where we stand with the cloud is, if you look, we're all surrounded by cloud applications right now, and they are on our cell phones, and we use them every day to connect to some cloud service someplace. Well, that model of computation, that's a programming model, that's a systems model, is extremely rich and potentially very rewarding for innovation. And so that's what's driving our group to a large extent. And so that's where, and so my question is, so how many people are interested in this, say, the client to the cloud application space among this group? Oh, actually quite a few. And the data streaming area, yeah, and as well. And yeah, Paul talked about that. And we had several really great talks on that as well. So I think this is, we would like to encourage people to look at that, and we would like to see more creativity there, because that's a wonderful area. We have a new person back here from us, who, as I said, she was off in her office, I think, someplace.
Well, I was showing somebody around.
Oh, okay. We heard it that you were showing them your office. I said, it must be a big one. It's taking a while.
We're just making some comments.
It's a virtual.
From an external research perspective, anything you want to say about the workshop?
It's on.
Yes.
Well, I'm just bowled over by the fact that so many people came to this dream of Kent's, really, and that it was such a success. I was chairing 2 sessions, and I found the papers really, really interesting. I can't single out any one of them, but from my point of view, just listening to what's been said here, the topic that hasn't been raised is the idea of software development in the cloud. So who's interested in software development in the cloud? Okay, great. That's something that I think could chew up quite a few cycles, and also something that is due for cloud, well, use of the cloud, because it's not something we do every day. So when we need to use it, we pay for it. And when we don't need to use it, then we don't pay for it. So I think that's also a very good one. From the external research point of view, we haven't as yet put money into funding programs with cloud. That's something obviously we'll have to start thinking about, given the interest you've all shown here. And thank you for prompting us on that.
So on that programming model issue and program development in the cloud, I've been struck by the fact that we might be in a bit of a rut in our programming style, and it would be very interesting to look at sort of new approaches. For example, if you think about these current client-to-cloud applications, we have typically a set of services in the cloud which are then mashed up really in a separate application. Is it possible, for example, to write a single application that really spans, goes from the client device into the cloud? You write one program and it resides somehow in both places. And the system, the compilers, manage to distribute that application automatically. Is that conceivable? Is that a reasonable thing to do?
Well, I guess that's the holy grail people have been looking for like many years. So.
Oh, okay. It's a holy grail.
Yeah, I guess so.
In fact, we already have a prototype version of this running on top of.
We'll go to Barcelona to see it. Very beautiful.
We are all we are invited, of course.
Other topics that were not covered that you wish would have been covered?
Well, there's one question is, especially when you start to think of the cloud as where everything's happening, where it's all going to head, how does that affect curriculum? I mean, Krishna put up this topic of things, right? That these are ways of things that people have to know, talk about what's going on in the cloud. How many people have students which are actually prepped for all of that? You know, or do you have to, because you can't just, if you do it all in just one class, you take up your whole semester, right? We're talking that this is going to filter down and have, you know, impact on our curriculum, arguably all the way into the freshman year, right? And, you know, where you know, our department struggles on how do we evolve to that.
Yeah, actually, there were 2 educational sessions, and there was very interesting development done by Austrian University. They presented some proposal where you actually can integrate the topic, because there is no cloud applications. So they came up with this proposal of teaching it as part of distributing system, part of OS, part of application. And they actually, it's very good news, they actually developed the course and will make it available to all of us through faculty connection. It's microsoft.com/faculty, and we will make it available to all of you. And there we go. You can start teaching May. Around May, it will be already available.
Hardcore, have a software engineering, have a networks person. That's how we did it. We offered it. We thought we would have no one. We had 15 students. It was brilliant. And we had projects all across. So we had students making projects in all of the known and available platforms at the time. Very early and very concluded.
Actually, Rosa reminded me one application we are working on, and I forgot to mention in my talk. It's about elasticity. So the dynamic adaptation of an application on different infrastructure. We are working on porting a mobile phone virtual machine on cloud. So trying to move the entire system, so the operating system together with the application, and to a cloud in case of energy efficient problem, or in case of need of how to say, more computing power necessary to run complex application that on the mobile phone cannot be done efficiently. So we are moving virtual machine between the cloud and the mobile system. So
Domenico, that's very interesting.
Could be an interesting services, because you can provide on a cloud these services for thousands of users. Okay.
So just one further comment on the education theme. One of the things that we have experienced at Microsoft when we try to hire people out of college or graduate school, and we ask them, all right, so have you written any good cloud apps lately? And or have you done anything that is a robust, distributed, scalable service application? And there's very, very few that have had that experience.
Hi, Bill Howe from the University of Washington. So I'd like to reiterate that this has been a fantastic event, and I'm really happy to have been a part of it. So I just want to mention, we've heard a lot about the importance of data, but I think the way we sort of talk about the cloud still doesn't reflect that. We sort of talk about it like it's a platform, and then there'll be applications that run, and the idea is that the applications are sort of siloed. But one thing that's kind of nice about the cloud is that physically co-locating all this stuff, data and applications in the same place, solves a pretty big chunk of the problem in getting them to talk to each other. Now, with corporate customers, they don't necessarily want to talk to each other. Maybe they want to sort of put up walls. But with science applications, you know, having the climatologist put their data up in the same place as the biologist offers new opportunities that simply weren't possible before there was a cloud. So the way I sort of think of the cloud is as like the database of everything. I'm sort of biased because I think about everything as a database, but I think maybe if we we're offering suggestions for the next one, maybe to think about the cloud as one big database rather than a bunch of little siloed applications would be something I'd be interested in hearing about.
Do a cloud challenge. Just come up with some application and have like they do it for the agents, you know, the bidding systems, and you know, just do it for the cloud. Just come up with a problem, put it out loud, just distribute a prize, and have students develop it across, and then and we could use that as a benchmark for cloud solutions, and then we'll distribute that, and that could be used for teaching in the next semesters and things like that.
So would that be something people would be interested in actually both seeing here at our event in the terms of both demonstrations and maybe even have people submit demos or a cloud challenge in advance, and people who are here could actually vote on it and makes the decision here, so we actually make it more interactive to see what people are building and doing? That's something we kicked around. We kicked around a demo or a poster session, but we thought the timing was a little too short for that. But what would the interest in something like that be? I mean, have a birds of a feather session where people who are writing code can interact with other people who are writing code on different clouds. What's the audience's thought about that?
I think demos are good if the students are here.
Yes.
Because then they could have workshops and they could exchange code, and
right.
they could, because they're the ones. Have you ever tried building the applications for the clouds? They're really hard and
right.
they require a lot of work. So the professors are not going to do that, but the students will. So if we can just bring them and they will serve as replicators, and we'll see.
So would there be value to see a show of hands if we were to both have a demo session and also maybe do tutorials for students and have hands-on birds of a feather sessions so students could learn from each other and go back to their universities and their faculty as well? A show of hands of interest in something like that? Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Good suggestion.
What about a cloud summer school? Any interest? Okay.
Who's summer?
We talked about it, and we're trying to figure out, gee, could we do the workshop and then do a summer school?
Can we have some better locations at Redmond?
I think Judith is pointing out that
You guys edit and you just have the things that were submitted. Why don't you do that? A post proceedings chapter book style. We like to publish.
So one thing about a cloud challenge, I think I like the idea of sort of picking a set of challenge problems that people could work on. We do have the classic one for data centers is become kind of boring. It's the TerraSort challenge. How fast can you sort of a Terra list of items? It's a terabyte or terabyte, anyway, whatever it is, a terabyte data set, and I think it's we could do better than that. And so I challenge you to come up with good cloud challenges that we could get everybody interested in.
I think one of the possibilities we have running what is called Imagine Cup competition.
Oh yeah. Yeah, sure.
And this is where the Imagine Cup competition everyone is interested know about. And this is probably, I'll speak to the team and I'll suggest that maybe we'll come up with some challenge that faculty and student can work together and we can implement it. But for this, it's important that we start teaching and doing something. Okay, it's a great idea. Thank you.
We do something with Imagine Cup. Faculty mentors are a very important part of that. So we have Imagine Cup going in about 80 different countries, and there's competition at the regional and the national level and so forth. So if we can get a cloud category, cloud challenge category for Imagine Cup, that would be very good. Other ideas, comments?
So I want to share with you a thought. So I think that the fourth paradigm of e-science, or whatever you want to call it, it's a nice thing. But actually, I think that if we must start sharing data, because it mostly this, first of all, data, and then you want to process them. We need stability. I mean, we need a stable place where upload data along the way, or perhaps protocols to expose our data to the communities, and places where this data can be collected and shared with the academics. And actually, I'm just facing this problem because we found a way to measure from power absorption algorithms, and I want to start a community doing testing worldwide. And actually, okay, where can I start? And actually, there is no reason in the answer to this. I mean, so I think that we should also think not what wanna do with the cloud, but also how stable can be these initiatives over time. Otherwise, it seems to be a lot of waste time.
I have one perhaps heretic thing that I would love to see, because I thought it was really great that you had Amazon and Google here, and I would personally learn a tremendous amount if I could see the same app deployed that is developed for Azure, for Google, for Amazon. And, fine, let whoever do it, so it brings out the best of each of them, just to see the differences and see what it takes, see how different aspects of the different app platforms are utilized and taken advantage of, and perhaps advantages or disadvantages that anyone will admit to. Yeah, of course, there are no disadvantages to Azure, of course not. But I would personally I would love to see that. I would learn a tremendous amount about the cloud from seeing something like that.
I think that actually might have I think that might carry a lot more credibility if academics would do it. We could consult to make sure, and I'm sure Amazon would do the same, to make sure that our technologies are used in the best possible way. But again, it would lend credibility, especially if you do it over a spectrum of applications, because then you'd see where some excel and some will fall down. We've done a little bit of internal analysis ourselves to understand how we stack up. But again, it might be an interesting discussion to share amongst people about what would be a good application suite, and then go ahead and do the evaluation yourselves. Yeah. We could consult.
So if we're finished, I have one final thing, and that is actually to really thank Kent Foster, who is the guy that really pulled all this together more than any of us. In other words, he dragged us along.
Great. Well, I think we're going to have buses leaving over the next 45 minutes from out here to take you back to the hotel at the Marriott. For those of you that are leaving, if any of you are leaving to go to the airport, you can see the receptionist up until 5 if you need help with airport transportation. One last show of hands, because I know everyone's been asking me who's staying over till Sunday. If you're staying over till Sunday and you're looking for colleagues to do things with, stand up so that you can at least see each other. So anyone who's staying over till Sunday, stand up. Yep. Great. So lots of things to do in Seattle, even if it's raining. So I hope you have a good stay here, and hope to see you soon, maybe next year.